Locus. Buenas Lotters. Bueno, yo no sé si diría... Yo diría mezcla entre Jurassic Park... también... O sea, en general es muy Hans Zimmer y John Williams. O sea, hay como toques de ese rollo. Bueno, al final es que son los... Yo creo que son las dos figuras más a destacar de lo que es las películas de ciencia ficción, ¿no? Buena Fable. Buenas Locus, buenas Bastard. Bueno, para quien esté nuevo por aquí, saber que el Star Citizen Live, pues es un show que entrevistan en vivo a gente que tiene relación con el proyecto de Star Citizen. O charlan con ellos en vivo, ¿no? Y que durante este tipo de programaciones, pues no puedo atender al chat porque tengo que estar pendiente de lo que dicen para doblarlo. Así que si tenéis cualquier pregunta del Star Citizen, pues después de que acabe el show, pues podéis preguntarla, o si no preguntarla, y seguro que alguien os contesta por ahí por el chat, ¿no? En algún momento pondrá ahí Citizen con Los Ángeles y será la cuenta atrás de la con... Buenas RV. Star Citizen Live.
Hi. Oh, over here. I'm by myself in the studio. Come closer. Come closer. This way. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour to the end of our week and we chat with some of our developers. For the first time since we moved into our lovely only constant spaceship, every single one of our guests are remote. They're calling from their homes, from their offices. Mike is probably in a back alley somewhere. We'll find out. Allow me to introduce you to many, but not all, members of the CIG narrative team. Hi, people. Now you're on the screen. We've got Adam, and we've got Will, and we've got Matt, and we've got Mike, and we've got Dave, and we've got Jeremy. And that was in no order whatsoever.
And just to clarify, we all could have been in the studio with you and chose not to.
You had the canoe ready, just...
They were like, we'll fly all of you out for this, no expenses spared, and we were like, no thank you.
Yes, because I won't talk about the predisposition of airplane tickets.
It was a polite but hard no.
It's one of those things. Here's a little inside baseball. It's really hard to get approval for an airline ticket. Sometimes there's a lot of things, but it's like, you know, if you're going to travel, like, you need to detail many values and rules to do it. I don't think appearing on the show is quite enough, unfortunately. It's just me, especially when they know we can do this. So yeah, that was a start. Let's meet some of the members of the narrative team now. Yes, if you've watched every video from Star Citizen's illustrious past over the last 10 years, or just my last 8 years, some of these folks are going to know backwards and forwards and upsides and downsides and in the back alley of a 7-Eleven. But every show is somebody's first, so we're going to take the time to... I saw you raise your hand, Mike.
Bueno, van a presentar a la gente del equipo de narrativa. Este es el equipo de narrativa. Tengo un mosquito por aquí tocándome los huevos, que de vez en cuando viene por algún motivo, no sé. Le gustará hacer mi show, el cabrón.
Because you raised your hand.
You unfortunately got the whammy.
Yeah. Who are you?
It's
And
a
what
bummer.
do you do for Star Citizen?
Well, I am the resident copywriter. I work on the narrative team, but I work a lot with marketing. I actually have to leave about halfway through this show. I'm going to big time all of you and go to an audio mix for a upcoming spaceship commercial. So I work on a lot of the commercials and the web copy and anything that has to do with like lore, but also marketing stuff.
Claro, dice que es como. Dice que es el Resident Copywriter. Es como que. Trabaja en el tema de, pues, de copyrights a través de la web y demás, y también en marketing. Y también en lore. Es como una especie de enlace, yo creo, por lo que comenta. Y que dice que además hace poco ha estado trabajando también en el audio de un tráiler de una nave que va a salir. ¿Cuál será?
Our titles are meant to confuse civilians. That's basically. It's very secretive.
Right. Next, let's go to Adam. Adam, who are you and what do you do?
I am a lucky member of the narrative team. I've been here just about as long as you, Jared, about 8 years now, which is crazy to think about. So I just tackle any and all writing tasks that come my way, whether it's mission text or barks, dialogue, in-game item.
Bueno, Adam es un viejo conocido ya, lleva 8 años, lleva como Jared, está comentando, ¿no? Y dice pues que toca de todo lo que tenga que ver con narrativa.
Big camera? I'm not seeing Adam on the big camera. You just see him in small. The big camera's not working? The button not working? Try hitting Alt on the keyboard that's behind you. Hit Alt F2.
If there was any doubts that this was a live show.
And if Alt F2 doesn't work, hit Alt F1.
Or Alt F4.
Nope.
This is all scripted to make it.
Nope.
This is all.
Zoom has decided not to behave.
I also need some help with my Outlook mail rules, Jared, if you've got some time during the show. Filter.
All right, so today's show is going to be in the grid, Brady Bunch style, I guess, since we can't do the punch-in. Matt, this is the first time you and I have ever interacted. I don't think we've ever talked to each other. They're like, yeah, you want Matt in here? And I'm like, sure. Who the heck is Matt? Tell me. Tell the community. Who are you and what do you do?
Okay, so I'm a narrative designer here at Cloud Imperium Games. And what that means changes on the day and who's asking. But to kind of keep it player focused for the moment, I am the mission givers guy. I work with mission.
Está comentando Matt que es que cambia mucho lo que hace, pero básicamente lo que es el Mission Givers Guy. Es el pavo que hace la narrativa relacionada con lo que es los daedores de misión. Los NPCs tipo Tice Pacheco, Wallace Kim, Ruto, bla bla bla.
It's a new initiative to get that kind of sorted, so don't send angry messages to Matt.
Yeah,
he's joined us to help.
He's still new. Give him some time, before you roast him in effigy. And then,
okay, thanks, guys.
And then ask him why Clem just stands there. Jeremy, another relatively you've been here for a while now, but I think this is your first show. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Jeremy. I'm the newest writer specifically on the narrative team. I joined summer last year, and I'm in kind of a similar role to Adam. I do most of my work focuses on the PU, writing items and missions and working with different teams like Montreal and MF.
Jeremy, que lleva un tiempo por aquí, pero que dice que es el escritor más nuevo que llegó aquí a la compañía y que se dedica pues también a hacer un poquito lo que hace Adam, de hacer pues narrativa para objetos, para varias cosas, ¿no? Que toca un poco de todo de la narrativa.
I work with Dave on Squadron 42 and the Persistent Universe, crafting content, creating documentation to help inspire the other teams when they do their work, writing scripts, writing short stories, all that kind of fun stuff. To jump ahead of it, we have a few team members that I would like also to shout out who couldn't be with us here today, but they are an important, vital part of the team. Our wonderful producer, Blythe. Sherry, our other writer, who some of you know is the archivist, but she's expanding into more and exciting things and really, might know her best these days for all her work on the Galactopedia. And we also have our other narrative designer, Tung, who's joined our narrative design team, who's been knocking out a lot of work on AI behaviors and getting them doing cool things in the game, which we should hopefully in future patches start rolling out into the PU. So you see the NPCs doing more interesting things as they go about their day. So.
Yeah. And a shout out to Tung. He wanted to be here, but Zoom was having some trouble with him. It was locking him out of his account, and we were trying to get him into the call right up until the beginning of the show. So, Tung, our hearts go out to you. And if you end up being able to join, like if you're watching on stream and Zoom lets you in halfway through, jump in the call. We're losing Mike halfway, so come in. You'll be in the second half.
That's right. Come meet us behind the 7-Eleven.
It'll be an upgrade, I promise. And last but certainly not least, narrative director. What is your title these days, Dave? Who are you and what do you do?
Yes. I'm Dave Haddock. I'm narrative director and certainly least. Obviously work with this whole crew to, come up with missions and storylines and characters and work on Squadron and the PU and do all sorts of stuff, and also acting as a mule to bring some stuff over to Jared.
He's not joking. He's not joking. I won't get into it, but the VAT import charges into this country are ridiculous. So we have I basically have a series of suitcases and bags and stuff at the LA office, and things get sent, and whoever the next person is gets to be my mule bringing stuff.
Está diciendo Escolando que con el compañero aquí, ¿no? Que dice que hay mucha peña que tiene cosas que traer desde Estados Unidos y que, claro, que los portes que son una salvajada desde allá para acá y que utiliza a peña del equipo de mula cuando alguien se viene que le traiga cosas.
Force here in the UK. Fascists. Sorry, I'm going to get in trouble. All right, so that is a brief introduction to many of the members of our narrative team. Let's talk a little bit about how you work and interface with development. Now, Matt touched on it a little bit, but I think one of the big misconceptions, one of the things that always kind of comes up in conversation is this kind of chicken and the egg sort of situation. Do things start with story? Do things start with an idea from the narrative and then that gets handed to the developers and they take it and run? Or does a designer or an artist or whatever go and make a thing and then come to you and be like, I need you to retroactively make this fit and work within our universe? Let's talk about that process. I'm willing to guess it's probably both, but what can you say?
I'll kick it off. Yeah. Basically, it's usually a little bit of both. Sometimes, because we've been building the lore of the universe so expansively for the past 10 years, there's a lot of stuff that we've already established. So sometimes it's about taking something like that and, the designers finally getting around to building it. So they have kind of they're working off of a loose narrative framework of what, a planet was intended to be or conceived of or something like that. And then they use that as a launching place. And then, of course, we work with...
Le está preguntando si a la hora de hacer la narrativa, si de repente pues hay un artista que trabaja en algo y ellos tienen que rellenar la narrativa o demás, o si no, pues o es al revés, si los artistas trabajan a partir de la narrativa que hay, ¿no? Dice que bueno, que realmente pues que ellos tienen ya bastantes cosas hechas a lo largo de los años. Y entonces, normalmente lo que se hace es, que está comentando, a la hora de hacer un planeta, por ejemplo, dice, bueno, pues vamos a hacer un planeta y tal, y vamos a tomar el lore que hay y vamos a acotar lo que es el imaginario que tenemos de ese planeta a partir del lore que está escrito, ¿no? Y luego pues hay una misión, por ejemplo, hacen una misión y dice, bueno, pues vamos a hacer la narrativa de esa misión para poder sacarla adelante, ¿no? Y que sea, pues que tenga sentido con lo que es el entorno y todo eso.
Have seen in the universe now and stuff like that clearly started with narrative and then made their way to the verse.
Stan system?
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is that, like, a lot of the location stuff on a high level begins with the seeds that we planted, or Dave specifically planted a decade ago, where what is the system? What does this feel of the system? What are these 4 worlds? And of course, we do iterations on that, and we go through once we plant that seed, and we're like, art and design get their hands on it and make it better, and then we go back and we make sure that the narrative matches the final product. But so I think that's the kind of biggest impact of arriving on the Cloud City Orison. Like, that was a narrative kind of idea of a cool location that would be fun to go visit. It's pretty awesome getting to see those ideas realized and being able to experience them as a player in the game. So,
and then of course, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought somebody was talking.
And then like, Jeremy can talk about it, like recently, like WildStar Racing, the org behind the racing was like, I guess it technically started as a design request because they're like, we'll need a racing org. But like, that what they are and who they do, that was all kind of Jeremy working on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's like areas, right, where we're still trying to develop like a lot of the gameplay infrastructure, right, for things that people want to see in the game. Like salvage is another great example, but what I've found in my experience is the teams are just really collaborative. And so though there might be a mandate that starts from design, everyone's very open to talking about how that can be elaborated upon. And I think the biggest constraint is less like, where do the ideas start, and more, what do we have the ability to execute on in terms of like scope management. And so salvage and racing both had contributions where I think we got to work, well, on those missions in particular, I was doing a lot of the writing and got to work really closely with those designers to integrate the lore and the design and make sure that they each supported each other.
Yeah. Let's talk about that process. So a designer comes to you, or a director, or whatever, they say, hey, we want to develop, on the 319 roadmap, for instance, let's go ahead and talk about that. There are new salvage missions, salvage specific missions. So let's keep on that thread. That way we can keep this stuff that's coming in 319. The request comes into you we want to add some salvage missions. What do you have to do to support that from a narrative standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think usually it starts off with a meeting of some kind, which I know everyone in the community loves so much. But once we've had an opportunity to kind of sync and see what they're thinking from a design standpoint, it's about looking at the lore we have that's already established and saying what exists that can support it. And if there are opportunities within that, then we try to kind of build upon that with...
Me está hablando un poquito de cómo es... Bueno, pues al final, una vez está Stanton hecho, ¿no? ¿Y qué pasa con Stanton? Bueno, pues que a veces tienen que efectivamente revisitar los lugares para asegurarse de que el lore concuerda. Luego, que también dicen que es impresionante, pues el hecho de ver cómo, a través de una idea que ellos tienen de narrativa, cómo ver, por ejemplo, lo que es el planeta de las nubes, que dices que de narrativa, desde el punto de vista narrativa, puede ser un buen lugar para visitar y tal, pero luego que verlo, pues que impresiona bastante. Verlo en el juego, ¿no? Aparte de la historia que ellos han creado. Luego también están diciendo que a la hora de ir desarrollando narrativa y demás, que el equipo es bastante colaborativo en general, la gente que está trabajando en CIG, bastante abierta a la hora de ideas y de ayudar para poder desarrollar la narrativa. Dice que además recientemente pues ha estado trabajando en efectivamente las misiones de chatarra, chavales. Está trabajando en las misiones de chatarra, que dice que es interesante, que pinta bien, y sobre todo para que... o sea, fijándose también lo que es en la escala que tiene todo, ¿no? La posibilidad de crecer y todo eso, y que dicen que queda todavía muchas cosas que desarrollar. Está también pues el tema de lo que es Wildstar, creo que se llamaba, Estrella Salvaje, me parece, que era la compañía que estaba detrás de las competiciones de carreras amateur, que son las misiones que tenemos ahora mismo de carreras, ¿no? Que está pues el circuito de Orville, Euterpe, Clio, bueno, de Daymar, ya sabéis, era 18, todo eso.
For you to salvage, whereas of course players can go out and find their own salvage, but sometimes it simplifies it. If you're willing to drop some credits, we'll give you an exact location, a ship totally ripe for collecting materials, and you get to keep all the profits after that. So that was kind of something that had a little bit of back and forth that we helped influence of trying to figure out like, why is this organization offering this mission? What do they want out of it? Does this make sense? And often we kind of tweak stuff with them where they have like multiple possible paths, and we kind of hone in on what feels best and what makes the most sense.
In that process, we ended up creating a new organization, Adagio, to handle more of the lawful salvage. And when we were figuring out new opportunities, we assigned the new mission giver salvage mission to Clovis Darnili, who will be handling that. And just kind of breaking down, I know when MFT was on here, they talked about the 3 different kinds of salvage missions that there are, but there's going to be more than just those 3 that we're kind of building and working towards, and hopefully salvage will continue to develop beyond that, just because it's...
Está comentando una cosa interesante, Clovis Darnili, que es el tipo que está ahí en Lorville en Reclamation and Disposal Orins, que se puede ver pues en el pavo este que está siempre tosiendo y tal, ¿no? Que está en la ciudad de Lorville. Nos comenta que va a ser la persona que va a ser el Mission Giver, que nos va a dar las misiones de chatarra, y está diciendo que, bueno, que a la hora de desarrollar cómo es el proceso de las misiones y tal, de que efectivamente pues hay que pensar de que sí, pues está bien que los jugadores puedan ir a chatarrear por su cuenta, pecios que haya por ahí y tal, pero que también mola la idea de poder pues por una cantidad de precio conseguir la ubicación de un pecio que esté perfectamente preparado para ser chatarreado. Aparte de eso, también nos están comentando de que las misiones que va a haber, que nos habían comentado de 3 tipos diferentes de misiones, pues ilegal, legal y con disputa de territorio, y dice que va a haber más que esas, ¿no? Que va a haber sobre 5 tipos y que luego pues, que se irá ampliando y demás, o sea que vamos a recibir más misiones de esto. Lo que no sabemos es cuándo va a llegar, ¿no? Todavía.
They're like, yeah, we're coming to help you, and we're not.
Not in gameplay yet, but thematically, that's kind of the idea, to keep you on your toes. At least that's the way this game operates. So
it's never easy. As far as other examples where narrative can affect game stuff in the game, Mike, it wasn't this last year's IE, but it was the year before where Jax did the whole spray paint thing on the roof and everything. That was the thing that originated, you know, with you guys and putting together those Jax things, and that ended up making it, you know, into the game. Are there other things like that where you've had ideas that started outside and somehow made their way in?
I mean, yeah. So that's a good example of something like that was sort of like, we wanted to get that into the game, and you know that that was originally pitched as like something that would be fun to put as just a visual thing you could find that, you know, once it happened in the series, and they made it happen, which is really cool, and that was super fun. There's some other times that it's happened more accidentally, which is like a funny kind of weird thing where, so like take for example the Banu Defender commercial back a few years back. For that ship, I wrote the script for that and included in it a sort of MacGuffin piece of alien tech that the woman in it picks up, and it's kind of like glows or whatever. And it was really just meant to be like, ooh, we're in an alien environment with things that they don't understand. It was really, and props came up with this weird little piece of tech, this weird little cube, and really just a throwaway thing in this commercial to like establish tone. And then they eventually made it like as a real prop in the game because people like loved it or something. I don't know. It was like people demanded that we be able to have the Banu cube. You know, there it is in real life. It exists in real life now, that's really crazy that it's like come full circle and something that was totally tossed off in a script. And similarly, in the Tavar, the Prowler commercial, in the original script, there was supposed to be these mercenaries that had on their face masks was like painted as sort of like vaguely avian, you know, bird-like thing, sort of almost like skull-like. And it was, again, just sort of supposed to be a flavor detail because the Tavaran are like these, you know, bird-type aliens, and it was meant to just kind of be evocative of that. But characters came up with like a really cool-looking helmet. They kind of like took it and ran. Instead of just having like a decal, it was like they kind of created an entirely new thing.
Claro, está diciendo que, bueno, de que el proceso de narrativa que a veces es emocionante o ilusiona, ¿no? El hecho de ver cómo, por ejemplo, empiezan a hablar o de escribir sobre un cubo vano y acaba apareciendo en el juego, e incluso pues ahí tiene ya de uno encima de la mesa, o el caso de escribir como fue cuando hicieron el comercial de la Prowler, que los guiones, en el script, ¿cómo se dice? Bueno, sí, en el borrador de lo que es el comercial, pues se describía como que tenían esa cara como demostrando el esqueleto de los Tevarin y tal, como evocando pues ese pues, ambiente de batalla de los Tevarin y tal. Y ambiente mortal, deathly, ¿no? Mortal de batalla. Y que al final pues aparecieron pues personajes con estos cascos, con estas armaduras, y que ver eso realmente, que a partir de ahí sale eso, pues que es realmente que emociona un montón. Vaya cabezón que tiene el Jared. Y que al final pues acabó siendo pues la armadura Avian, ¿no?
I put it in the chat.
En plan, es como ¿cómo es? No, casualidades o cosas que suceden a partir de eso que son creaciones fortuitas, creaciones de casualidad, ¿no? Que a partir de algo pues inspiran para hacer este tipo de cosas, ¿no?
Typical day, or maybe that's a little too granular. A week in the narrative team. Do you go off and work on your own and then come back for syncs? Do you pair off into tasks? Talk to me about how the team dynamics work and how you guys work together.
It's a shame Blythe isn't here. She would be able to walk you through it step by step.
That was a question for the producer, and the producer in here. So.
Yeah, we actually don't know how to do it ourselves without Black.
Yeah, we're very confused. I mean, usually standard week, we kick off on Monday mornings with kind of a stand-up meeting with everybody, kind of talk through like what are current tasks that are on the docket, if there are any major priorities, if anyone's been working on anything that has got blockers, or there are issues that have come up with, kind of talk about their goals for the week and stuff like that. And then that ends with a fight club. But basically it's we kind of will assign tasks. Again, we have a lot of different requests coming in on covering a lot of different, I mean, as everyone's been sort of saying, like covering a lot of different topics. So it can be a bunch of item descriptions, proposals for mission types.
Fijaros en la diferencia horaria de la hora que tienen allí. Las 9:25 de la mañana, chaval. Fijaros en ese detalle.
Level review.
Es que al final el trabajar en 4 estudios diferentes, y además ahora que parece que tienen gente de Corea, o sea, no sé muy bien si es porque estaban trabajando en eso y tal, porque nos dijeron, o sea, es un montón de horas diferentes y tal, y claro, luego vemos algún parche que da a las 5 de la mañana, porque a nosotros nos toca pues la hora europea. Ni tan mal. Imaginaros a la gente que le toca la hora australiana.
But then we basically, everyone just kind of goes off and starts tackling the things that they were looking to tackle, and we will source each other if we need to, and reviews kind of move up the chain, and so we do rewrites and iterations, and if it requires syncs with the outside teams or dependents and stuff like that, or stakeholders in it, we'll have those meetings. And then by the end of the week, we have a thing, it's called our weekly narrative jam, where we basically it's an opportunity, it's kind of a scheduled hour-long meeting where we can bring the entire brain trust together. And so if people have questions that they want to kind of put to the entire group of like, hey, how does mustard exist? And if mustard does exist, what kind of mustard is it? Have we finally kicked spicy mustard to the curb? Are we finally embracing yellow mustard for the great condiment that it is? That type of thing, and then talking it out, or it just becomes...
Claro, está comentando de que cómo es el proceso de trabajo, ¿no? De ellos, que al final de la semana pues tienen una reunión, al final de cada semana, para debatir o poner en línea cosas y tal. Digo, por ejemplo, si van a meter mostaza en el juego, pues qué tipo de mostaza tenemos, va a ser mostaza picante, ¿por qué? ¿No? Cosas como esas, o simplemente pues es una oportunidad pues para generar nuevas ideas.
The mustard, and that's exactly what happened.
Jared, you know me too well.
I miss you, man.
Likewise, man.
So again, before we lose my, there's the stuff in game. We've done a lot of focus about the stuff in the game. We touched a little bit on the trailers and stuff, mostly how they affect the game. But you also do a lot of stuff outside of the game, and we're gonna curve back around into Stanton and Pyro here in a bit. But before we do,
a personal poetry project.
yes, I want to know about. This is your chance to plug your personal poetry projects. Mike, I know you've got a band. No, but.
That's my personal poetry project. Yeah.
Talk to me about the stuff that the narrative team does that surrounds Star Citizen, the lore posts, the Galactopedia, the star maps. Let's start with the lore post. The lore posts are probably the oldest continuous content delivery that the project has. It's the only thing that predates the stuff I do. I go around bragging like I've been doing this forever, and you guys are the only ones that are like, been doing it even longer. So let's start with that. Talk to me about the something every Tuesday, the lore posts. Not those ones specifically, but the lore posts.
Yeah, that was an initiative that Dave started with basically the time capsule series and the run up to the initial kind of like crowdfunding campaign, just as a way to bring people into the world, to show them the type of world we were thinking of building and kind of highlight some elements of it. And it just kept going for years and years and years as the game was being built, because we found sometimes, if there were certain aspects of the game that weren't ready to be experienced, by being able to kind of like tell stories or kind of like, show these different shows and these different viewpoints of the verse, it would help kind of fill out the world for the players, but also, as we discussed earlier, for designers, for artists, that we're also working.
Claro, están comentando de cómo surgió la idea de poner los posts, de las publicaciones, ¿no? De lore y demás y tal. Y dice, sí, pensamos que sería una buena idea, pues, tanto para que los jugadores pudieran abrazar, entender lo que es el mundo de Star Citizen, pero también para diseñadores o pues es como una forma de poder alimentar lo que son los artistas, los creadores del juego también, no solo los jugadores, ¿no? Para poder pues seguir teniendo cosas para el juego, ¿no? Alimentar esas ideas.
Forum and this extended into Jump Point, into the lore pieces that we have there, the different adverts for some of the subscriber items or stuff that were always in Jump Point. Is like, whenever we had a chance to just make the world seem alive from different from angles, we decided to do it that way. So yeah, whether it's an SET, which is a fake, kind of like TV talk show that or a TV talk show, and in that current age, or whether it's Parker Terrell and the Plain Truth, spitting conspiracy theories about the...
Claro, otra de las cosas que pues está diciendo, ¿no? A través de los posts también de mostrar diferentes puntos de vista, diferentes ángulos de la historia, como por ejemplo hacer esos posts de lore que a veces nos hacen como de un falso show dentro del juego, ¿no? Un show ficticio, no falso, un show ficticio dentro del juego, como haciendo una entrevista a alguien para, como tratando de dar esa ambientación supuestamente que está ocurriendo en el juego y mostrarla, ¿no? Aparte, pues ya sea pues haciendo objetos de suscriptor, que también pues esos objetos de suscriptor pues tengan un lore añadido, que también pues vayan poquito a poco describiendo lo que es el universo desde diferentes ángulos, ¿no?
But for the employees, like it's one of those things that is common with ISC and stuff like this. It's very easy to think that those things are created just for the community, but they're actually really good resources for people internally to learn about what's there in the verse, learn about what's going on in other aspects of game development and stuff like that. So the last question before we move on, you ever gonna bring Kid Crimson back? You're gonna do more Kid Crimson?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
I think the answer to that is he never left, Jared.
I mean,
That's true.
He is now Team Crimson.
Like Team Knight Rider?
Awkward preteen Crimson.
Oh, Teen Crimson. Okay. Oh, Kid Crimson. I gotcha. Sorry. Took me a while to get there.
I'm sorry they can't all be mustard jokes.
And then I know Sherry's not here, but let's touch on this a little bit so she gets her laurels there.
I don't really think of the Galactopedia as an out-of-game project. It's the first place it's showing up, but that was 100% written because we want the Galactopedia as an in-game asset. So that is still being actively pursued.
Están diciendo si van a traer, si van a seguir haciendo historias sobre Kid Crimson, que bueno, Kid Crimson es un contrabandista, ¿no? Que acabo de buscar ahora, la verdad que no sabía, pues es un contrabandista de... La historia de un contrabandista, una especie de Han Solo de la vida. Que pues con sus historias y todo, las historias de Kid Crimson, ¿no? Han dicho que sí, que van a traer más historias.
A large repository of knowledge created with the goal of kind of collecting not only humanity's knowledge, but also the Banner Xi'an and Tavaran knowledge from across the universe.
The Banner section is pretty small.
All right. Coffee Gaming in the chat is like has a suggestion for you. What about Kid Mustard? Consider Kid Mustard.
Good,
Kid
I like
mustard's not bad. That goes with then you could have a hot dog with crimson and mustard. You know, ketchup and mustard.
Other things the narrative team.
Hot dog squad. Hey, on that, I'm gonna leave.
I was gonna say, is it time for you to go, Mike? Is it time to take off?
Hot dog squad. The crickets in the room tell me that I should probably ungracefully exit.
I'm done missing you.
Jared, thanks for having me. Glad to be here with the rest of the team. I got to go make sure that spaceships sound cool in a commercial.
Yeah.
So
I'll see you when I'm there. I'll see you when I'm there in October.
Dice que se tiene que despedir, que tiene que mirar, tiene que asegurarse de que el comercial de naves que van a mostrar suenen bien las naves.
Alien languages. So that's another big one. Not every game has fully developed and fleshed out, or maybe not fully, but incredibly fleshed out and developed alien languages, and we're working on several. Talk to me about that initiative. Making alien languages? What? Somebody?
Sorry? Sorry. I just signed up my flight been scanned. Sorry. Got distracted. Alien languages, yeah. What about them? They're fun.
Why?
They're complicated.
Why?
They're fun.
Just because they're fun?
¿Por qué hacemos lenguajes aliens? Y dices, sí, porque son divertidas. ¿Por qué? Porque sí.
That we try to do, like, it wasn't just... It didn't feel right to just have them be doing, you know, have aliens and they're just doing weird garble nonsense. Like, we wanted that level of...
Claro, no queríamos aliens haciendo idioma Murloc. Queríamos cosas que tuvieran sentido, ¿no? Tuvieran una civilización, todo el rollo, y que realmente pues tuviera un idioma. Que se sintiera eso, que es real y tal, todo el rollo.
And it you know, again, like, as we started working with Britain, our xenolinguist, to kind of develop it, like, it opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities, from environmental storytelling to interactions, and as you know, ultimately our environments of being able to have, looking for opportunities where a player's understanding of a language, might give them an edge. Like, it won't, again, we're still trying to figure this stuff out. So it's not necessarily like, oh, you have to learn a new language in order to, benefit, because I barely struggle with English. But, like, opportunities where, like, it gives you just a little bit of insight or a little bit of more character or backstory or something like that, because I can understand Xi'an or read Xi'an, and that type, it just makes it feel like it's a real living world if we actually, like, spent the time. And working with Britton has been amazing, because he's so incredibly talented when it comes to constructing these things, that and in really, like, insanely detailed ways of making them feel like, from a linguist perspective, not human, which I think is, I don't know, for me was one of the things that one of the details that was really, really exciting about it was the fact it's like, if...
Claro, están comentando que, bueno, es que no me acuerdo justo cómo se llama el tipo que hizo el idioma Xi'an, pero está comentando que, bueno, que trabajar con él que fue una experiencia interesante, sobre todo por el hecho de que hacer sentirse que escuchar el idioma del Xi'an y darse cuenta de que no era humano, o sea, que no se notaba humano, y que eso fue un momento pues que le entusiasmó mucho, que le gustó mucho trabajar con eso, ¿no?
languages primers. And then there's a section on the robertspaceinstitute.com website with a bunch of comics about it. And then there's a number of citizen resources, folks out there who have really taken it upon themselves to even push it further.
Que están comentando de que hay un montón de... que hay gente pues que se dedica también a enseñar Xiang en la comunidad o incluso pues que tienen pues, diccionarios Xiang que los hemos visto.
Explored what other languages have we begun to flesh out?
Xi'an and Banu have been released as guides to the community in the form of the Rust Society Guide to Banu, which is a really wonderful document for diving into the culture and touching on what Dave said. Like developing these languages have really allowed us to think about these species in ways that we wouldn't have just coming at it from our more gameplay mindset, or even like creating a full verse and talking about politics and stuff. Like Britt, a lot of times for his language development, needs to know details that we wouldn't really dedicate time on, like, how, can Banu choke on something? like that was a question because he was going down like this word development and was wondering, would he borrow humans' word for choking, or would they have their own word because they can choke on stuff all the time? And like okay, sure, like let's have a fun 15-minute conversation about this. So that's been great. And then kind of all not as public so far. We are developing additional languages for ancient Tavaran, which in the lore was used pre the first two Tavaran wars and kind of fell out of favor, and has recently been having a bit of a cultural resurgence, as well as the Tavaran there's been a growing movement to reconnect with their cultural past. And then also, of course, the Vandal is being worked on.
Están comentando de que bueno, los idiomas que hay ahora mismo son el Banul Shan y que dice que sí, que están mirando de reconectar pues a través de antiguas culturas Tevarin, el resurgir también el idioma y tal, y también que está trabajándose en el idioma Bandul. O sea que, es decir, que el Xian y Banu sí han sido publicados, pero Bandul y Tevarin parece que no están todavía listos.
All the spare time we have.
That Rust Society guide has a pretty extensive Banu language dictionary in there already. It's not completely filled out, but when it comes down, it's become a great resource for us, because as we develop and release more Banu items like knives or weapons or ships, we'll often refer to that dictionary as a source of inspiration for what a name might be, or things like that. So it's and that document is extremely long, and a lot of it is cultural, just to kind of give you an idea of who the species is, like Will was saying. And then there are just pages and pages of these are the literal translations, and sometimes going through and just seeing, and this is what the Brit's brilliance is, like a word or what it's related to or how it ties into this or that, I think gives an insight to the species and stuff like that. So it's very informative and very interesting.
So let's move into the PU now in this current state. So if somebody joins the project now or recently, i.e. Fleet Week, whatever, the 318 coming out, and they're coming to the Stanton system for the very first time. Obviously, we can't go through everything, but give us a primer. What is the Stanton system? What's going on? What's life like? Who's in charge? Brain dump us here. Give us a primer.
Si alguien se une por primera vez al juego, ¿qué es el sistema Stanton? O sea, desde un punto de la historia, ¿quién domina el cotarro? ¿Cómo va el tema? También estaban hablando antes de que se inspiraba, que los diccionarios que llevan y tal también sirven para inspirar pues nombres de objetos, como los cuchillos que sacan y tal, y que es una librería muy buena pues para recibir inspiración, y también porque es como una forma, una seña de identidad de la cultura Vano.
All the major planets are owned by mega corporations after having purchased the rights to these planets and kicked out some illegal settlers.
Está comentando de que pues, el sistema estándar pues, se compone de planetas que están comprados por corporaciones.
Governments, and as you might expect, a lot of these companies aren't great at being governments. They're not necessarily doing the best job, and so with
Claro, y como podéis esperar, estas compañías no son necesariamente los mejores haciendo el trabajo de gobierno de cada una de las ciudades, porque tienen ciudades principales, cada uno de los planetas.
Criminals encroaching, whether from nearby unlawful systems or just within Stanton itself, where there's not yet a massive lawful presence as the companies are figuring all this out, trying to take advantage of the opportunities and the commerce that's available to be pirated, stolen, etc.
Claro, están diciendo de que todavía no hay una presencia fuerte a nivel legal en lo que es el sistema y que pues los piratas toman ventaja de esto a la hora de comercio. Pues mira, esto sí que es algo que es... no, yo pensaba que Stanton... yo pensaba que Stanton sí que iba a ser un sistema bastante blindado, pero comentan que no, puede haber cambios en el lore a medida que avanza el juego. Y están comentando que efectivamente pues que como que no hay una seguridad demasiado dura, que hay oportunidades para los piratas.
Who is Tessa Bannister?
Más que demasiado dura, bien establecida.
Come back.
I mean, she's still there. I talk to her all the time. Did you all just upset her in some ways? She doesn't want to talk to you anymore?
Wait, is she not working? Was there an issue council report about this? She's supposed to have been there this whole time. What do you mean she's not there?
She is still very much on our minds. I know, Matt, you have some feelings.
There have been conversations about Tessa. Someone who played the game back in the 2X days. I think it goes without saying I'm excited to see her back. We're talking with the other teams about what would be the best way to do that. I mean, we don't have anything like concrete to tell you yet, but I think we all know we want it back. We know you guys want it back. I know it's not the answer everyone wants to hear, but there is a plan.
Se está tronchando el cabrón. El tema de Tessa y tal, que bueno, que Tessa es uno de los NPCs que había al principio de los tiempos y tal. Si no recuerdo mal, era haciendo misiones de ICC me parece que era, cuando, bueno, la 2.6 o 2 por ahí. Y dicen que nada, que si va a volver, que sabemos que, bueno, para ellos hay la gente que llevamos tiempo en el juego y tal, pues como que hay mucha gente que la quiere de vuelta y tal. A mí personalmente me da un poco igual. O sea, me refiero, si no es NPC es otro, pero bueno, como que tiene nostalgia para la peña y todo eso y tal. Entonces como que están mirando de que definitivamente dicen, no sé que no es la respuesta que queréis escuchar, pero volverá. Hay un plan para que vuelva. Y ya está. Es como un poquito de tema, pues eso.
Slowly moving it to the pipe till we get to her. So,
Chad is asking what Tessa's favorite mustard is.
Have to see.
Say that. You're not going to tell people. You're not going to show people. Don't do that. Besides the 4 big corporate giants who own the 4 mega planets, there are also other organizations floating around. There's Grimhex and and as a location, and then there's Ninetales and Xenothreat roaming around. Give us, tell us, because we're bringing back Xenothreat and Ninetales, Lockdown, and stuff like this, for folks again who are joining and whatnot, they don't know the history or don't know who these people are. Somebody introduce us to Ninetales. Who are they? What do they do? What do they want?
What the Ninetales want is a bit unknown at this point.
God damn it.
There's a
Answer the
portfolio
question,
written
Adam.
about them. Yeah,
I think they've been working towards that 10th tail, I think. That's been...
but yeah, there's a portfolio on them where they started off as kind of like a for-hire kind of like gang that was out there pulling big jobs in other parts of the UEE, and for some reason decided to settle at Grimhex Station and take it out.
Bueno, están diciendo para la gente que no sepa y tal, describe un poco lo que son los Ninetales, los 9 colas, ¿no? Que pues Grimhex, sabéis que para la gente que no sepa y tal, pues está tomado por los Ninetales y dice, bueno, pues es una organización que se dedicaba a dar palos por ahí adelante y tal, por sistemas de la web, y acabó en Grimhex por una razón que no se desconoce. Tienen como guardar un poquito de misterio acerca de la forma en la que operan y todo, que de hecho se supone que tienen una forma de operar irregular y por eso pues no se sabe muy bien cuál es su forma de operar, ni cómo está gobernada, ni nada, ¿no? Es como un desconocimiento, misterio que están construyendo alrededor de lo que es la banda criminal.
Back to Grim Hex, where Crusader doesn't seem to want to do a full-on assault on their own, and the other corporate entities in the system don't seem to have the muster to want to get together to try to take on the program. And the UEE's like, hey man, we sold you guys this system. It's your job to keep.
Claro, dice que estamos en un punto en el que los Crusaders no quieren meterse allí a hacer una raid en Greenhex. Los otros corporaciones de Stanton pasan del tema porque no es su problema. La UE no se mete porque dicen, os hemos vendido el planeta, es vuestro asunto, limpiaros vosotros el patio, ¿no? Entonces están allí como en el limbo en Greenhex, ¿no?
Deal with that
Los Nine Tiles.
situation. Whereas like the idea of like, oh, why don't we scale a massive assault on a full station full of people and evict them is a different matter entirely. So it's kind of like, how do you deal with this known encampment that's at the Grim Hex or Green Imperial Hex Station?
We've seen the Nine Tails and Crusader, security, clash a bunch of times. What about the other corporations in Stanton? Do the Nine Tails have a relationship or a standing with ArcCorp or Hurston or Microtech? They just stay out of their way?
A little bit. The Crusaders, the main sphere of influence. There's other gangs that we're slowly hoping to introduce and see more of as we expand content. Like, we have the Dusters, who are a gang who specialize in kind of more of the high-end ore theft, like raiding other people's claims, doing legal processing, that kind of stuff. We just talked about the tar pits earlier. We have the Nova Riders. There's also in Hurston, we have the Hurston Workers United, who are trying to struggle for labor rights, but are deemed as outlaws because, Hurston doesn't like what their message is.
Claro, están diciendo dicen, aparte de los Nine Tiles hay otras bandas criminales en Stanton y tal, y dice sí, que están los Dusters y tal, que están pues en Microtech y tal, que es como que se dedican al pillaje, y es como el pillaje high-end de alto nivel. Hay Nova Riders también, hay otros dicen que están también en Lorville, que se dedican a defender los derechos de los trabajadores, y eso a Hearthstone no le gusta, a Hearthstone Dynamics no le gusta, y como que... Digo, están en el planeta Hearthstone, ¿no? Y eso a Hearthstone no le mola, y entonces son considerados piratas.
Pyro. For people who, again, most of the show is for this week is for folks who are...
No, más que piratas, son considerados proscritos, ¿no? Outlaws.
Give me the nickel version. What is Pyro and why does Pyro matter? To the story, to the fiction of the universe.
So maybe we'll take a stab. Okay. So Pyro is going to be an interesting addition to the game in general. Basically, the idea is with it at its core, Pyro is a lawless system, so it is technically unclaimed by the UEE, which is our sort of reigning human government body. And it got its name from basically the idea that the star at the center of it is very unstable, and so it is a kind of unpleasant place to live. That's why the UEE basically kind of deemed it as, we don't really care about it, let people kind of mine it for a bit and exploit it, but with no intention of kind of settling the planet. So with that sort of vacuum of authority, it became a place for criminals, outlaws, people who were trying to live off the grid or away from the UEE and stuff, and it sort of became just sort of a lawless place. So
está comentando una cosa que yo pensé que era diferente, porque dice que Pyro, el nombre viene de la inestabilidad que tiene la estrella. Yo pensé que venía de Pyro Amalgamated, que es se supone que es la empresa que estuvo allí haciendo pues industria de explotación minera y tal, y que dice que pues como que bueno, pues estuvo haciendo explotación minera y tal, y que pues como que es un lugar que no es agradable para vivir y tal, y se ha convertido pues en el hogar de criminales, desgraciados y demás buena gente.
it's going to be a really, going to be an awesome place to kind of wander around, but yeah, that's a lot to process to do. But yeah, the idea, the core of it is basically that because it's a lawless place too, that it's sort of in constant civil war among the reigning.
Claro, dice que como que, efectivamente, como que es un lugar sin ley, pues está en constante guerra civil de a ver quién lleva el cotarro allí, ¿no?
You would see that power struggle going on. So it wasn't a place with a, again, as compared to Stanton, this was a place that had a shifting power structure. So Xenothreat might be in charge 1 month or 6 months or 1 year, and then the headhunters might be in charge.
Claro, esto es interesante, esto es algo, está comentando algo interesante porque es lo que dije yo, ¿no? En su momento, de que yo creo que Pyro puede llegar a funcionar en el juego como los castillos, ¿no? De los MMO que están en controles de tal o como facciones que si tú le prestas el apoyo, ¿no? Pues consigas beneficios y consiguen algo. Porque están diciendo, esto no os lo están diciendo yo, lo estoy diciendo yo como una suposición de que creo que es como es el gameplay en Pyro. Porque están comentando de que la estructura de mando de Pyro con respecto a Phantom, que pues en Pyro va a ser cambiante, pues que puede que estén controlado por la Xenodread, pero luego puede que esté conectado por los Headhunters u otra organización, ¿no? Que va a ir cambiando de manos el poder. Y yo creo que ahí quizás ellos monten eventos, aprovechen esa historia, tal. Yo creo que que va a haber una intención de montar refriegas, batallas, jaramuzas por el control y por parte de los jugadores y que vaya a haber distintas reputaciones. Y que no vayas a poder escoger siempre la reputación que te lo da todo. O sea, que algunas veces estés puteado, otras veces te vaya bien. Yo creo que va a ir por ahí el rollo, ¿no? Vamos a ver qué sale de todo esto.
The idea of they're sort of networked over a bunch of different worlds, so you can have a presence.
Yeah, because there are members of humanity who don't want to live under the UE's rule, and there's still opportunities and money to be made in the Pyro system. We've kind of identified on the narrative side these kind of historical waves of interest in the Pyro system, like, first discovery of the system and Pyrotechnic Amalgamated moving out there, trying to get as many resources. And then like, a big push when shield technology improved and all of a sudden it was safer to fly in Pyro closer to the flare store, and that brought in more people. And the discovery of new systems that connect to Pyro have brought with it a new wave of interest of like, people looking to get the resources there, make profits in that system. And like when the Stanton system really kicked off, all of a sudden there was another renewed interest because Stanton system's an economic powerhouse in the universe. And so how did that affect Pyro? And so I think there's all these individuals who end up in Pyro for various reasons who do just want a life, who want to be left alone, who want to try to, make their way as best they can. And so hopefully the players will be looking either to help them out or severely take advantage of them and make their lives a living hell. So we'll see what they want to do.
Están diciendo de que de alguna manera, pues en Pyro también hay gente pues que va a vivir porque es lo que hay, es lo que le toca y tratan de hacer su manera, pero que no pueden tener nada que ver con la ley, por lo que sea, por las situaciones que tienen y tal, y que pues habrá gente, jugadores, de alguna manera que traten de sacar ventaja de eso o que les ayuden, ya veremos cómo va. Pues al final son muchas posibilidades en Pyro, ¿no? Y sobre todo pues las conexiones a otros sistemas que tiene Pyro, y además estar pues al lado de una potencia económica como es Stanton, pues Stanton es una potencia económica en el universo y que pues que las conexiones que tiene Pyro con otros sistemas y otra vez con Stanton, pues que eso genera diferentes oportunidades, ¿no?
Collision. We touched on Xenothreat. Xenothreat keeps coming into Stanton and stirring up stuff. We ever going to get to return the favor? Maybe. The good people.
That's the hope. Yeah, I mean they're a Pyro-based kind of political terror.
Bueno, están diciendo de la Xenotred y tal, el evento Xenotred, que sabéis que es una banda de Pyro, una banda que bueno, pues que son unos ¿cómo es? Xenotred, es que no sé si es xenófobo, no sé si xenófobo es, bueno, que básicamente que es anti-alien, o sea, que son super mega racistas con los aliens y tal y todo ese rollo, no quieren nada tener con los aliens y tal y van con de ese palo. De hecho, pues están compuestos por antiguas fuerzas de... O sea, por gente que estuvo en la Marina, la UE y todo eso y tal, y quieren como que todo lo alien que es una... Pues eso. Son en ese palo, ¿no? Anti-alien a muerte. Y dicen, vamos a tener alguna posibilidad, la oportunidad de devolver el favor, es decir, devolver el favor de que vengan a atacar a Stanton y tal, y dice, sí, esa es la idea de que en algún momento, pues, esperemos que sí, ¿no? Que en algún momento, pues haya una contrapartida, sea un asalto, ¿no? Por parte, supongo, que será de las fuerzas de la UE a Pyro.
One of the things I want to touch on is that there isn't in game dev, there isn't this, you come up with a plan in year 0 or 1, and then you just stick to that plan wholeheartedly and without change, without evolution, without ever having a better idea as you continue to develop. New people come online, new people join the project, and with it they bring ideas and they bring interest and they bring their own agency and things they want to add. So that can lead to a lot of these lore posts or these histories that you've written over the years to change. And some would call that retcon, but I think more appropriately, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it's more just the natural evolution of a universe of game development. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I barking up the wrong tree?
I mean, that is how it goes. I mean, we don't want to be a team who digs in our feet and be like, well, we wrote this paragraph 6 years ago, so it has to be this way. Like, especially because our goal, just like a lot of the other teams, is to have the most fun gameplay we can. So our narrative is always in service to making the game fun. And so, with Pyro, we've talked about this a little bit, but it turns out that it's more fun for some of these worlds to be slightly less harsh than we had originally envisioned, for them being a little more forgiving environmentally, so that some of our other gameplay systems can exist there. So, we're looking at adjusting those original write-ups, like a lot of...
Claro, esto es una cosa que está pasando con Pyro, ¿no? Que se han dado cuenta pues que el juego va a ser de otra manera, que muy distinta. Y realmente, pues al principio Pyro pues iba a ser un puto páramo, básicamente, y eso lo han cambiado. O sea, lo han cambiado por el lore, lo están adaptando, es una cuestión de jugabilidad, porque tiene que ser divertido el juego y porque pues antes no se podía, cuando se hizo el lore de este, pues no se podía ni bajar a planetas, ni leches. Y entonces, ahora claro, el juego pues tiene una dimensión muy distinta a lo que era, y efectivamente pues quieren hacer un Pyro que tenga unas condiciones menos duras que antes, en cuanto a entorno, ambiente, que sea más amable, en el sentido de que sea más divertido jugar allí, que no sea tan duro, que eso no significa que no haya sitios así. Pero bueno, está claro que pues esto ya lo digo yo como opinión personal, está claro que, hombre, que si va a salir Pyro, tío, va a salir el primer sistema, no puede ser un sitio en el que, yo que sé, tío, que estés 5 minutos y tropieces con una piedra y te abres la cabeza. O sea, tiene que tener un poquito de flexibilidad en ese sentido, pues va a ser una zona nueva, un mundo de expansión, además, un sitio permanentemente sin ley, aquello va a ser hostias como panes por todos los lados. Entonces, tiene que ser, vamos a decir, accesible, entre comillas. O sea, para ofrecer, yo creo que pues eso, para ofrecer un poquito lo que es la cara opuesta de Stanton, de estar una zona regulada por la ley, de la manera que sea, pero tiene ley, a una zona pues que realmente sea pues la aventura y Juan Palomo, ¿no?
There's this idea, a myth, that a plan is put in place before a game is started, and you just spend the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, in our case 10 years, whatnot, just executing that same exact plan that was laid out before. But proper development is about incorporating all of the ideas and the feedback and the lessons learned along the way, and that applies to summits. As well, for folks who watched yesterday's ISC and came away thinking, oh, they're just starting on this. It's like, no, they've been on it for years. The summit is about taking the lessons that they learned through PDS and incorporating it and adjusting the plan where it needs to be adjusted and reinforcing the plan where it's like, yeah, that absolutely worked the way it was, and continuing to go from there. I think I was looking at the comments, and I think a lot of people took the this is the first time they're meeting in person because we just came out of a pandemic, to mean that this is the first time they've ever talked about this stuff. And that's on me. that's on me. We could have been a little bit better with the edit on that. So.
Está comentando algo interesante acerca de lo que es el Inside ayer sobre el Persistent Entity Streaming, el Server Mesh y toda la tecnología que están haciendo y tal. Diciendo de que estuvo leyendo los comentarios de YouTube y que puedo dar la sensación de que era algo como que estaban empezando y tal, y que dice que eso pues puede ser falla de su comunicación, de que realmente es la primera vez que se reunían debido a la pandemia y tal, pero que ya habían tenido reuniones al respecto acerca del tema, cosa que sí dijeron en el Inside, ¿no? Que habían estado reuniéndose de tanto en cuanto para poder... dice, por lo menos una vez al año, creo que era. Una vez al año tenían una reunión acerca de esto para estar en la misma página, pero que bueno, que al final una cumbre de ideas en persona, pues es otro rollo, ¿no? Eso es mi opinión, o sea, es otro rollo. Y que dice que como que es para alinear realmente lo que se... Para que esté todo en orden, para que esté todo en línea, pero bueno, que vamos a ver cómo progresa, que nos enseñe el resto de partes de la reunión, y vamos a ver cómo progresa el server mesh. Lo vamos a ver, o sea, porque no queda de otra, ¿no? O sea, lo vamos a ir viendo a ver qué tal progresa a lo largo de este año.
I forgot that there was this. And so, how long did you wait before you started?
Porque hay una cosa que está clara, o sea, palabras sobre el server mesh y todo eso, estamos en un punto que yo creo que no nos sirven. Están bien, o sea, está bien que pongan, pues que hagan una reunión de server mesh y tal y cual, pero claro, la mayoría del público lo que quiere pues es algo... Tío, ¿dónde está? ¿Sabes? Eso es lo que quiere la mayoría de la gente. O sea, porque sí, vamos a esperar a que acabe de hablar.
Recently had to reschedule for some personal stuff. I have had a long and storied thread in Teams called Jared's Channel of Bailing His Ass Out. And it's only got the members of the narrative team in it. So I always appreciate them when I throw the fail signal up, and they're like, it's Jared, he needs us, and they come and help save the day. So thank you so much, everybody. And Jeremy and Matt, it was very good to meet you for the first time today. So that's it. That's Star Citizen Live.
We have a special guest joining us for the last 30 seconds.
Especially what?
Sherry's here.
Oh, Sherry!
Sure about that.
Jeremy, you're muted if you want to unmute. I don't know.
Hi. Wait a.
Hi.
All right, start it over. Back to the beginning. So, Sherry, who are you, and what do you do?
Oh, I'm Sherry. I'm an associate writer / archivist here at Cloud Imperium Games. I thought this was now and not an hour ago. So I was like, I totally made it in time. This is great.
Time zones.
So sorry about that. But yeah, I do the Galactopedia and help with alien languages and planets and stuff.
That's why it's the narrative team and not the schedule team.
Sorry.
But blame Blythe. She's not here. The producer's not here, so blame her.
Oh no. Okay, cool. I'll do that.
All right. Thanks so much for
Blowing.
Yeah, it's the exposure stuff.
Sorry. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Be sure you check out ISC next week. Big mining changes coming to Alpha 3.19. I haven't seen it on the roadmap yet, but I flew to Frankfurt this week and caught up with Torsten, and there's some really exciting new mining stuff coming in 3.19. So check that out on ISC next week. And then if you haven't already, check out the recent ISC about the Server Machine Summit. Like I said, we talked about it a little earlier. It's a new kind of a story attempting to tell a multi-part thing, where we don't tell the whole story in a single episode. It works for some, it doesn't work for some others. We experiment. I've been doing this for a long time, so we're going to try some stuff. If you didn't like it or whatever, you should absolutely blame me. The developers are doing wonderful work, and they've got some great updates coming. And we'll revisit the summit here in a couple weeks, and you'll see more of what their conclusions were and what they came to. But yeah, so for Will and Dave and Jeremy and Matt and Adam and Mike and Sherry, I'm Jared, and holy crap, I remembered everybody's name. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.